All right, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and today we're going to look at some more online tournament results to see what decks have been doing good. Last time I did this video was like a week or two ago, so I thought I would do another updated video here looking at the online tournament results here in the Prismatic Evolutions format. We do have Merida this weekend, Merida, so we do have another big tournament this weekend, then EUIC is in a couple of weeks after that, so definitely important to look at the results here and see what decks are winning, and just take a gander here at what the best decks are in the current Prismatic Evolutions format. Now, of course, if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 21,000 subscribers, and I'll leave a link to Play.Limitless down below if you want to go play in any of these online tournaments for yourself. Maybe you'll get featured in one of these videos. But yeah, let's take a look at it here and see what's been doing good. So we got the Sunny's Weekly to start off with here, and the deck that won was Lugia. No surprise, Lugia's still doing good. I mean, it's one of the only, like, consistent decks that kind of beats Dragapult and Gardevoir. I mean, it kind of beats them. I say kinda because it can be countered, but it's definitely, a very powerful deck with the addition of Regigigas. See the Wellspring. The one thing with this build, there's no Cinccino in the deck, just opting for Drapion, Regigigas, bare hands, weird ear, stuff like that. But yeah, Lugia is just a very consistent and powerful deck right now. And it's just been doing really good in the online tourney scene. We'll have to see if it gets countered or anything going into Merida. Well, yeah, saw an interesting Frostlass Budu deck in second place here, playing a couple of the Pixies. We got the Azelf and the Uxie in the deck. The Azelf can do more damage for each damage on the board, and then Uxie can spread some more damage. It's an interesting archetype. Frostlass Budu is like a fine deck. I don't know if it really beats Gardevoir if they play Cresselia, and I'm not sure it's very favored into Dragapult, but it's a cool deck nonetheless, and it's a fun little meme deck. And it was able to get second. It did lose to Lugia, which I would imagine is kind of a tough matchup too for the archetype. And then we got another Lugia in top 4 here. This one does, however, play the Cinccino. It's got the 2/2 line of Cinccino. Yeah, the Cinccino I think is still very good right now. If you're going to be paired into stuff like Archaludon, it's still nice to have the Cinccino in the deck to help counter that. Because otherwise your attacker's a little bit more spread out, right? Your attackers are good into the Dragapults and the Gardevoirs, but the other matchups where, you might want to have a Cinccino in your deck, like Raging Bolt and Archaludon, the lack of Cinccino can definitely come up here, for sure. All right, next up we have a Palkia Noctowl deck here. It's an interesting archetype to see still do well, considering, Budu can affect this deck. But maybe there wasn't as much Budu in the top 8 that held this deck back. But, I mean, this deck is fine. It does rely a little bit heavily on the items, I feel like, in the early game, which is kind of why I, don't know if this deck is great into the Budus. I mean, I guess you have the Fan Rotom, which can be a really good way to, deal with a Budu. Your opponent just puts Budu down, they can just Fan Rotom it maybe and knock it out, which I guess is, how you can deal with Budu. I mean, Palkia is still a very strong archetype, right? So we'll have to see if the deck can still survive the Budu shenanigans. Another Lugia here in top 8. This one also playing the double Cinccino. It's got the Gigas in there. No Blood Moon or Saluna, though. It's definitely an interesting decision. Yeah, there's no Blood Moon in the deck, so that's kind of crazy. But yeah, Lugia still doing Lugia things. There's a Goldengo in top 8. I like Goldengo. I'm not sure how Goldengo does in this meta. I honestly haven't really played a lot of Goldengo in this format because I'm I didn't write it off. I'm Goldengo doesn't feel great in a Budu format because, quite literally, if you run out of energy cards, Budu wins the game by just attacking with Itchy Pollen because you have no way to put energy back into your hand because you can't play your items, and then you also take no damage from Budu. So they just sit there and deck you out, basically. So I'm not sold on Goldengo in this format. I don't know if it beats Budu, but it's still a fine archetype. The Palkia build is still probably the way to go. Maybe Goldengo can adapt to play Monkey Dory or just other tech cards to help deal with the Budu, but we'll have to see on that one. Definitely not a bad deck right now. And then another Lugia in top 8. So Lugia dominated this tournament. Now, this Lugia list is a bit different, though. It's got Reversal Energy in the deck. Okay, that's interesting. Reversal Energy I don't think works with Cinccino, though, in that way, where, it gives you... yeah, Reversal doesn't give you 3 more energies on Cinccino, I don't think. It does let you attack with Archeops. Interesting, too, this build is playing a Brilliant Blender C-Spec to try to get turn 2 Archeops more consistently. It's got Budu. I don't hate this idea, actually, for a Lugia deck. Budu into Brilliant Blender and a turn 2 Lugia? That's kind of cool. I guess one difference, no Iron Hands in the deck, right? There's no hands in here. There are some other interesting stuff like Riofort, and there's the Arizu. So that's interesting. Yeah, cool idea for Lugia deck. It did get top 8, so it didn't do Didn't do too bad in the tourney. And then finally, there's a Guardian top 8. Yeah, not surprised. Gardevoir is really good. Gardevoir is playing Tomb right now, which I do think fixes your Lugia matchup a little bit. I don't think Lugia is even that bad of a matchup without the Tomb, but the Tomb definitely makes your Lugia matchup fairly decent, I want to say. So, yeah, Gardevoir is going to continue to be a really good deck in this format, and not surprised to see it in top 8. We're probably going to see more Gardevoir in this video. All right, next up we have the Turtle Weekly, which once again was won by Lugia. So, yeah, Lugia is just absolutely dominating the online tournaments. I'm not going to lie. It is looking like it's out there as, I don't know if it's the BDIF, but it definitely is dominating these online tournaments to make a case for that, right? So this build does also not play the Cinccino, does have the Vladimir in the deck. It's got Gigas in there. We see Wellspring, Ogre Pawn, Weird Ear, Hands, stuff like that. Thornton. All right, yeah, no Cinccino. And then was able to beat an Espathra deck here, which, yeah, makes sense. Espathra gets rolled by Lugia. It has a really nice ability, but against Lugia, when they can put 4 energy into play every single turn with Archeops, that ability is not really going to be as useful. Plus, Gigas just one-shots the Espathra. So yeah, I mean, Espathra's cool. It was actually interesting to see this deck actually do this well in this format. I don't know if it's very good into Gardevoir either. I would assume that's also a bad matchup. We see this build's playing Fluttermane. It's got a couple Budu in there to slow the opponent down. Briar, League Headquarters. Very interesting way to play Espathra. So it's cool to see it do well. Ultimately did fall to Lugia. Like I said, doesn't seem like a great matchup. We see a Sarah Ledge deck here in the top 4 with the Palkia, and got the Monkey Dory in there. Monkey Dory makes sense right now against Dragapult. I like the Palkia build in the Sarah Ledge deck. It just gives you more options in a match, right? Gives you more lines than just beat stick Sarah Ledge attack, right? And you also get access to Greninja, which can be really good against Dragapult to take out their Dracloaks early on. We got another Goldengo here in top 4. This one also plays Palkia. So no Monkey Dories or anything. Yeah, we do see Manaphy in there. Bundle, Greninja, Fez. Yeah, the normal Goldengo stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I like Goldengo. I do have to try it out in this new format a little bit more and kind of get more of a feel for it. Hopefully the deck is good. Hopefully the deck is still good in this format. I mean, Goldengo usually does have a good matchup into Dragapult. Maybe that's it. All right, we see a Turbo Moon here in top 8. I'm assuming the Turbo Moon must have hit the Espathra deck in top 8. That matchup is pretty bad for Moon, obviously. Turbo Moon's like a fine deck right now. I think it's not great into Dragapult. I think you're okay into Gardevoir. Gardevoir is probably not a bad matchup because you do have the 2 Moons in the deck, the baby Moons and stuff. Like, I would assume Gardevoir is a fine matchup for Turbo Moon. Dragapult feels kind of iffy because, like, Phantom Dive is really bad. If you use Frenzy Gouging, right, the Phantom Dive becomes a lot more scary, so I'm not too sure. Plus, like, you can kind of get, not body by Budu, but, like, Budu can be annoying for the deck, but Turbo Moon's still not a bad deck. And again, I would imagine it's, like, Guardian matchup is, like, okay. Lugia matchup's, like, probably, like, close to. We got another Zard, a Zard Dragapult deck, I should say. Not another one. We got a Zard Dragapult deck here in the top 8. This deck has been getting some play recently. It's got the Heroescape in there. It's the spec card. Charizard offsets a lot of Dragapult's weaknesses by having a really good backup attacker, and then, of course, you do have the Heroescape to make your Charizards or Dragapults more bulky. The Cape probably makes a bigger difference into Lugia matchups specifically, where you can't get one-shot by Gigas or Cinccino, which is kind of nice. So, yeah, Charizard Dragapult looks like it's still, like, a pretty decent deck. I have to play this deck myself. I haven't really put much time into it. I mean, I've done really good with this deck in the past. Like, I literally won 2 of my League Cups with a deck like this. So I'd have to try it more. Though I still kind of want to play Pidgey on the deck to give the deck a little bit more, like, control. But, I don't know. Charizard Dragapult looks like it's a pretty solid play in this format. Another Dengo in top 8. So 2 Dengos in top 8. Okay, this is the Dengo Dragapult deck. So this is a deck that I'm not convinced on yet either. I have, we did see it do well in Japan's Osaka Champions League. I'm not sold on the deck. I don't really know what this deck does different than Palkia. I know you get a little bit of extra support with Dracloak, and, you get an attacker with Dragapult, but it doesn't seem like the synergy is, like, as good, if that makes any sense. Also, you don't play as much, you don't have as much control in a game, I feel like, because, like, you're kind of a bit more, not slower, but you're not Dragapulting turn 2. You're not playing Rare Candy. You have Team Evo, I guess, so maybe you can. You have 2 Crispin. So maybe there is something to this deck, actually. I don't know. I definitely have to play around with this deck a little bit more. I mean, as somebody who likes Goldengo, I definitely want to try this deck out and see if it's actually any good. It's an interesting list for sure. And then finally in the top 8, good old Dragapult Dusknoir. Just, pretty consistent, strong deck. Probably BDIF right now, in all honesty. All right, and that was the Turtle Weekly Tournament. Moving on to the Deck Out Monday Tournament, which Although Blitz was able to win with his new control deck here. Pidgeot Control is still surviving in the Budu format. He did make a few changes to his Pidgeot control list, though. It's a little bit different than what we've been seeing. For starters, he's playing Pidgeotos now because he's playing Grand Tree to play around Budew, right? You get Budew, you can't go Candy Pidgeot, but you can go Grand Tree into Pidgeot, and that plays around Budew. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, Control is trying to put the Pidgeot into play as fast as possible, and the Grand Tree gives you the ability to do that. There's some other new cards like this Shempow here. It's got an ability when you play it, you can discard a Stadium card from play, which I assume is to get rid of like Jamming Tower or something. And then you have the Milotic in here, which prevents your opponent from being able to play Turo. Black Kyurem is really good right now against Dragapult because it paralyzes them. Got Luxray, the usual Control stuff, Wellspring Ogerpon. Yeah, Control looking like it's still surviving in this format. Grand Tree just kind of makes the deck a lot stronger. It's cool to see Grand Tree finally get its flowers because it's a very interesting Stadium card. Next up is Cloth Tropico's Budew. Yeah, pretty strong, just beat stick deck. Has a lot of options with Poison and Budew and Cloth, Tropicos being really strong attackers. It's a pretty strong deck right now. Just nothing really crazy to write home about with that deck. A couple of Archaladons in top 4 here. So first one is a very interesting take on Archaladon. It's Archaladon with a Toedscruel. So there's no Dialga in this deck, just playing the Toedscruel. Toedscruel's nice, right? You stop Goldengo, you can stop Raging Bolt, and Regidrago, I guess, if you happen to play against that. And then, of course, you're just playing a really big beat stick Archaladon. Got the Scoop Up in there, the 2 Turos, 2 Jamming Towers. Playing Budew, too, is kind of interesting. I don't hate the idea of Budew and Archaladon either. Yeah, cool Archaladon list. No Dialga, right? Just a Dialga-less Archaladon. Just trying to be bulky, 2-shot stuff, and just put on as much pressure as you can. Got another Archaladon here, also not playing Dialga, so 2 of the Archaladons in the deck out Monday here. Keep in mind, this tournament was like 200-plus players. This Archaladon list does play 4 Jamming Tower, though, so it is trying to really nail home the idea of just not letting your opponent play tools. And I don't hate the 4 Jamming Tower. It gives you a better time at a Dragapult and Gardevoir. Probably your Guardy matchup becomes super favorite when you play 4 Jamming Towers. So that's kind of neat to see. Yeah, kind of crazy stuff. Got on the Lugia here in the top 8. This one does have double Cinccino. Playing a Jamming Tower too, and a Mezagoza split. Not too bad. Then we got Miraidon. Yeah, Miraidon seems decent right now too, right? Just being able to aggressively put on pressure with Iron Hands in this format does seem really powerful. My issue with Miraidon, though, is like ultimately getting Budewed, right? Miraidon, I feel like, has to go second, right? So you don't get Budewed. You have to get turn 1 hands. Like, it's just not impossible to get turn 1 hands. It's likely. But the hands definitely helps the deck a lot. And Miraidon just seems really strong right now when Lugia is extremely popular, especially in the online tournaments. In the last tournament we looked at, there's like 4 Lugias in top 8. So, makes sense. Got Zard here. So once again, Zard Pult. So, normal Charizard's play rate has declined a lot just because it struggles into Budew and stuff and Dragapult. But Charizard Dragapult's doing pretty good because the Dragapult engine is just so powerful. And then getting the addition of playing it with Charizard makes sense. This one does not play Hero's Cape, though. It opts to play Unfair Stamp. I don't hate the idea of Unfair Stamp either. It's what Tord played in his NEIC Zard Pult list. Makes sense to play it here, too. Unfair Stamp definitely is a very powerful card. I don't know. If I'm playing Zard Pult, I definitely still want to try to squeeze in a 1-1 Pidgeot, but that's just me. Or at least a 2-2 Pidgeot or something. And then in the top 8, once again, we had another Lugia here with the 2 Cinchinos and the 1 Mezagoza, no Jamming Tower. Did I miss a deck? Did I miss one? No, I did not. Okay, I thought I did. There's a Charizard at 9th place. I thought that was in the top 8. Okay. Next up, we have the Redacted Evolution Tournament here, won by Snorlax. So, yeah, it looks like Snorlax is still surviving in Budew format. Fun stuff, for sure. Not really. Yeah, I mean, Snorlax is like a fine deck. A lot of the decks are not playing Switch. Like, Dragapult plays 1 Switch. I think that's about it. And then, obviously, Gardevoir is unfavored usually. If they're playing Tomb, it's not great either. But, I mean, Snorlax, it's a deck that does well in online tournaments. Some people don't want to play against them. And I feel like a lot of the decks that are around the top decks, like, don't respect Snorlax. Like, no one's respecting the deck right now, which makes sense. It's not really a deck you have to care about at the moment. I also don't think Snorlax is very good in this format overall. It's bad into Budew. And you're not great into Lugia. Lugia's always been a bad matchup. Lugia is really popular right now, but Snorlax is still just a deck that can win games off the back of people not knowing how to play against it properly, and it still is a deck nobody really respects. Now, the cool thing is, in the second place here, there was a very fascinating Flareon deck here. Now, it's Flareon with a couple of extra EVs. We got the Sylveon in there and the Espeon EX. So there's no Leafeon, no Jolteon, nothing like that. Just opting to play Sylveon and Espeon as your backup evolutions. The cool thing with that is that you get some De-Evolve action and some Angelite action. So the Sylveon's probably really good at dealing with the Archeops. Like if your opponent's going double Archeops, you can literally Sylveon the 2 Archeops back into the deck and reset their Summoning Star. And the Espeon can be really good into Dragapult, so you can de-evolve all their stuff. So definitely a really interesting take on the Flareon deck here. It's cool to see Flareon have results. I think there's potential for Flareon. That potential might be reached a little bit more, maybe in rotation, but still cool to see the deck doing good here in the Prismatic Evolutions format. Did lose to Snorlax, didn't look like it had a great time into that matchup anyways. There was Rhydon in the top 4 here. Playing Future Booster Capsule to make your hands do even more damage. Not a bad idea. And then a Guardian top 4 also. No Budew in this build, though. Just opting to play Mimikyu and Klefki and Unfair Stamps. Yeah, no Budew in this Guardy list. Some Guardy lists have played Budew, some haven't. We'll see how other Guardy lists we see are going to play Budew. Another Snorlax in top 8, also playing... Okay, this one's not playing Rotom, though. So this is the Rotom list Snorlax build, just opting for the heavy supporters to just try to compensate for the lack of Rotom. But yeah, Snorlax did good in this tournament. Who knows? Is Snorlax a good deck? I don't know. Seems like it's okay. Got a Dragapult Thorns in top 8. I do like this deck a little bit more in this format, mainly because, like, Thorn's good into Lugia, Dragapult is just really strong. The idea of Monkey Dory does help the deck a little bit, too, because you are able to use Adrenaline Brain, which is probably really good in the mirror match. I think the one thing with Dragapult Thorns, though, is that you do rely a little bit too heavily on your items to set up. So, like, if you get Budewed, you can't play Precious Trolley. That feels pretty bad, obviously. Thorns doesn't really slow down Dragapult Budew that much, because, like, they're just Budewing you, and they're also just building up their board without using Rotom or anything, which kind of sucks. So it's not a perfect solution to Budew, but like Budew definitely can be a problem for this deck. Honestly, this deck might need to play a couple copies of Lance to confiscate for the Budew. But yeah, Dragapult Thorns doesn't seem like a terrible deck right now. And I like the idea of Monkey Dory. We do see the Toedscruel getting cut out of the deck. There's just not enough matchups where it's really as relevant right now. Like, there's no Raging Bull, there's no Drago, obviously, stuff like that. So you don't really need the Toedscruel anymore. So you can kind of free up a couple of extra slots in the deck for the lack of Toedscruel. And then around things out, we had 2 Lugias in top 8 here. Perrin in this build. Reveal 2 Pokemon from your hand, and then swap them. Okay, that's interesting. Interesting Lugia. Got 2 Jamming Tower, double Cinccino in there. Yep, and then we got a Lugia here in the top 8. This one also plays Cinccino. This one's got the Raikou in the deck, though. There's no Light Energy, though. Just playing the 1 Legacy. I guess the one thing to note, there's 4 copies of Pokeball in the deck, so really going all in on the casino there. You got the Mesagoza, the Captain Romas, and the 4 Pokeballs. When Pokeball flips heads, so I'm just saying it does get you Archeops. So it's on a coin flip, so you kind of have to run hard for it to do well. But, Pokeball is pretty funny for sure in the Lugia deck. All right, moving on. We got the Pumpkin Amy Weekly, also won by Snorlax, which... Look at that. Snorlax won 2 online tournaments this week. It's an interesting sign for sure. Again, just a lack of people respecting it, I guess, is what gives it the edge here. Surprisingly enough, it did beat Archaladon here in the finals, which I would imagine Archaladon is super favored against Snorlax because it has 2 Turos and a Scoop Up Cyclone and a Pelpad. So something must have went really wrong there for Archaladon to lose to Snorlax, because I assume that matchup is, like, extremely free. But, it happens. Maybe just prize a Turo. Got the Pelpad milled and the Scoop Up milled off of Misfortune or something. But, yeah, Archaladon with the Dialga here. You got the 1-2 Dialga. Playing the Ditto. Got Budew in the deck to slow the opponent down. Yeah, cool stuff. Got a Bravery Charm in the deck, which is interesting. And then 2 Jamming Towers, too. So, cool stuff. And then in the top 4 here, there was another Sarah Ledge deck. This one was Sarah Ledge Palkia once again. No Monkey Dory. Does play the Budew in the deck, though. Has a Jamming Tower in there. Brilliant Blenders. They expect no Prime Catcher. No Canceling Clone either. But, yeah, cool stuff. Nice little solid Sarah Ledge deck there. And then in top 4, once again, we got a Lugia, double Cinccino, got Gigas in there. We got another Ancient box to look at. So another Ancient deck, I should say. Not the Turbo Moon deck, but it's Ancient box. Ancient box seems okay right now. I'm not sure if it's, like, great in a Dragapult, but we do see the Monkey Dory, which I'm sure the Monkey Dory makes a big difference versus Dragapult. And then, obviously, you do have the ability to be decent into Gardevoir with the Moons, right? You have that type advantage. Pekron, gives you a good matchup into, like, Snorlax, I guess. Yeah, Brilliant Blender is not bad, in the deck as spec. Yeah, I don't know. Ancient Box seems okay right now. Doesn't seem like it's a terrible deck. I mean, if there's, like, a lack of Charizard, it's probably in an okay spot. I don't know if its matchup into Lugia is great, though, but Ancient Box is, like, a fine deck. It's cool to see it do well. No Lugia in top 8. Yeah, Lugia is just running through these online tournaments. It is absolutely just crazy to see how well Lugia is doing, man. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, Lugia is just destroying everything. We've got a Miraidon in top 8. Not surprised to see that. Miraidon's a pretty good deck right now against Lugia, so Miraidon's still holding on. Miraidon's definitely the best big basic deck right now, it looks like. You haven't seen it like Raging Bolt or anything. I mean, we saw Turbo Moon, but we've seen more Miraidon. Then we got another Lugia list here. This one does play a Radiant Charizard, however, and a Luminous Energy to support it. There's no Cinccino in this one. Does have Flutter Mane and Weird Ear, though, and Gigas, but yeah, no Cinccino. Opted to play the Radzard instead, which is kind of neat, so not bad either. And that was the top 8 of this tournament. We can move on to the Prismatic Ditto tournament. Oh my gosh. Snorlax won 3 tournaments? What the heck? Yo, that's crazy, bro. Snorlax was on a tear this week. That's crazy. This one does play the Rotom. Yeah, it's crazy. Damn, Snorlax just did so well this week. That's ridiculous. We got 1, 2, 3 tournaments won by Snorlax. My goodness. Did beat Miraidon in the finals. Not surprised to see that. Miraidon literally doesn't play Switch. Well, actually, this Miraidon has played a Minior. I'm interested to see how that would have went. Huh, maybe the Minior was prized or something? I don't know. That's interesting. Minior does help, obviously, a lot against Snorlax, too. It's not a perfect answer. Snorlax can, have counterplays to it, but that's kind of funny. And we got a Lugia in the top 4 here. Playing the Cinccino in there as a 1-1 line. Yep. And then a Dragapult Pidgeot here in the top 4. This one's definitely an interesting list. It's Dragapult Pidgeot with a Cornerstone Ogerpon and a Noctowl. So that's kind of neat. So the Noctowl does make your deck more consistent at getting turn 2 Pult off. Plays a Budew, plays a Fan Rotom to find Pidgeys and stuff. I guess you get Pidgeotto too. It's got an Area 0 in there. The Cornerstone, I guess, is just there to activate Noctowl turn 1 as opposed to playing like Pikachu or Wellspring or like Teomask or something, obviously. Dragapult is a Terra Pokemon, but you have to get the Dragapult to play before you play the Noctowl, which is like not as synergistic in this type of archetype. So it's a cool take on the Pult Pidgey list for sure. Another Dragapult Dusknoir in the top 8 also. Got the 2 Lance, the Budew. Playing a Judge is interesting. And 2 Lost Cities, so trying to be a little bit more aggressive into like Gardevoir and stuff. And I guess Mirror can be decent in Mirror. You can remove all their like Dreepies and stuff from play if you're wiping out all their Pults. Another Miraidon doing well. Yeah. Miraidon list there. Nothing too crazy. Played by Cal Connor. So there you go. Then we got Tropicos in top 8. It's a deck, or no, it's Tropicos Budew. Okay, it's not Tropicos Dusknoir. I thought it was going to be a Tropicos Dusknoir. It's just Tropicos Budew Cloth. Yeah, once again, pretty solid little beat stick deck here. One of the better decks that can kind of utilize Budew the best. However, in the top 8, there was a Regidrago, so it's not completely gone yet. It was Regidrago with Noctowl, so kind of went back to that like older build of Regidrago we saw in the Stellar Crown format with the Noctowl. Drago definitely has to compete in an uphill battle, though, versus Budew, because you can't play your energy switches. It's not, like, unlosable. You still have counterplay, like Motivate. You can Celestial Roar if you really have to. Drago V's first attack to get energy in play. It's not as good, not as efficient, but, Drago's still decent. If it sets up against a lot of these decks, like Gardevoir and Dragapult, it's still very favored into them. If you play Temple Sinnoh, your Lugia matchup's okay. Yeah, Drago definitely has fallen off, and, this is maybe the only Drago we're going to see in this video. Then finally, we got the Battle Park tourney, which was won by Dragapult Dusknoir, not Snorlax this time, so hold your horses. Snorlax did not win this online tournament, but, it's just won by Dragapult Dusknoir. Pretty strong little consistent list there. And then, let's see here. It was able to beat Ancient Box in the finals. This is kind of my issue with Ancient Box. Like, you have the Monkey Dory, but I don't know, man. I'm not sold on the Dragapult matchup. The one thing is, it did play Gravity Mountain, so maybe that could have helped a little bit more. Because, Dragapult does have a lot of HP, and Gravity Mountain can help, especially versus stuff like Charizard, if you end up running into that, I guess. So, cool stuff. Ancient Box. Definitely not a bad deck. I'd have to test it myself in this format. We got a Lugia in top 4 here. Playing 2 Dust Ball in the deck and 2 Jamming Towers. So a little bit more techier. A little more teched out, I should say. Techier is not a word. And then we got the double Cinccino. So that one does play the Cinccino. And then the top 4, we had Pidgeot Control once again. This one does not play the Pidgeotto Grand Tree. Played Precious Trolley, though, over that. Does have the Grand Tree, the Black Kyurem. It's got Scolvin in there. You can discard top card of your opponent's deck. So it's just a way to, mill your opponent. It's kind of funny. Yeah, nice. Control did decent this weekend. Control and Stall definitely did decent, right? The Snorlax winning, the Pidgeot Control winning, kind of nice. Speaking of Snorlax, there's one in the top 8 at the very least, and it was another Rotom-less Snorlax deck here. Doing well in the tournament. And then another Miraidon, top 8. Yeah, pretty consistent standard Miraidon list, nothing too crazy. There's a Future Booster Capsule on the list there. So the one takeaway. And I guess there was one more Drago to look at. There was another Drago in top 4. This one does play Latias and Budew. So Drago definitely can adapt to this new format. I do like the idea of playing Latias and Budew in the deck. You have the Budew. You can Budew your opponent. If you can actually use Drago and Budew your opponent first, it's actually kind of insane because you can Budew them and then you can go aggressive Dragapult or Kyurem if you want. The Latias. Latias does help against Budew because you can freely move around your Pokemon. My main issue with playing Latias in the deck, though, is you're already kind of tight on space on the bench. So you're kind of limiting what you can bench when you put the Latias in play, which is my only problem with playing Latias in Regidrago. It's definitely not bad into Budu, and you can obviously use your own Budu, you can use your own Cleffa. Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, seems good. Got the Hulucha in there too, which is good against like the 7 HP Pokemon like the Dreepies and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see how Drago can adapt. Like, will Drago make a comeback, or is the deck officially like tier 2 or lower in this new format, or will it eventually become a top tier deck again? We'll have to see, man. Anything's possible. And then in this tournament, finally another Archaladon Dialga with a 1/1 Dusclops and Baynet. I don't have the idea of Dusclops. I really like the idea of playing like the Dusknoir engine in Archaladon. From what I've played in that Pidgeot build that I tried a couple weeks back from Birmingham, the Dusknoir actually felt really good. It allows Archaladon to take KOs out of nowhere. And then obviously, you can use it with Dialga to take some sneaky knockouts with Star Chronos. The Baynet's nice against Iono. It's kind of a cool list here. I like it. There's no Jamming Tower. There's a Vacuum, though, and 2 Pokestop to be a bit more consistent. But yeah, it's a cool list for sure. I like it. Yeah, there you go. Those were the online tournaments of this week of Prismatic Evolutions. The big takeaways, Dragapult, Lugia, really popular. Snorlax, winning 3 online tournaments. That is something that was not on my bingo card, for sure. Like, it literally won 3 tournaments this week, so that's kind of interesting. Is that a sign that Snorlax is going to rebound in this format, or is it just one of those, like, online tournament things where the deck just does good in online tournaments because it's just an online tournament warrior-type deck, especially in an open decklist tournament, right? That's also a big thing. And then, obviously, Control won a tournament, too, so Control, Stall, Archetypes had a pretty good week. So is that a sign? I don't know. But it's interesting too. Some cool stuff we saw, like the S-Pathway deck, the Flareon deck was kind of neat to see. But yeah, the meta's definitely in an interesting spot right now. I'm going to be curious to see where it goes going forward post Merida. I'm excited to look at the results from Merida and see what did well in the tournament and stuff. Going to definitely look at all the decks that made day 2 there. And I'm excited to kind of dive more into this Prismatic format, because I do think there's more to be explored in the Prismatic Evolutions format, and I think that we'll see a lot more of that with Merida, and then probably a couple more weeks of online tournaments, and we'll see more shakeups probably and all that stuff. I'm excited to see all that in the future. But yeah, if y'all enjoyed the video here on Second Channel, make sure to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. We are on the road to 21,000 subscribers. Once again, I'll leave a link to Play.Limos down below if you want to go check out and play in an online tournament for yourself. And I'll catch you on another video very soon. Bye-bye.